So today I've been troubled by allergies. Don't worry, it's nothing serious, just allergies that is really kicking my behind today. You may hear a few sneezes throughout the studies. We are continuing today with chapter 11, the pneumatography and direct writing. Now we are on the topic of direct writing, in which, as we explained last time, it is just the ability of spirits to leave written messages in a piece of paper that was placed somewhere, and the letters, the sentence, the paragraph appears kind of out of nowhere. And we'll see over here, they're not on a paper. Some of those direct writings has happened in many other places. Very much like the first reading, it's very self-explanatory. It's very hard to add something to it. I have actually had some thoughts of bypassing some of those things, but those thoughts didn't last too long because we are here to present a book in it entirely. And what I may think that it's kind of necessary, maybe important for someone else, and I'm not in a position to make those decisions. So will you read? And please stop me, have questions, but sincerely, there is not much to comment on a very straightforward reading over here, and there's a lot of things that is repeated that I have seen before in previous chapters, as you're going to see here very soon. There is a lot of things that's being said here you had already seen in previous chapters. Who's going to read? Who's there?
Double duty for Philip, right?
I charge extra. Shall I begin?
Please.
147. Since the possibility of writing without an intermediary is an attribute of spirits who have always existed and in every era have produced the various phenomena with which we are familiar, they surely must have produced direct writing during antiquity as well as today. This could explain the appearance of the 4 words written on Belshazzar's party hall wall. During the Middle Ages, so steeped in secretive wonders, which the state tried to hush up, direct writing must also have been known about. Perhaps in the theory regarding the modifications that spirits can produce in matter, and which we developed in chapter 8, the principle for the medieval belief in the transmutation of metals may be found. Whatever the results obtained in previous eras may have been, however, it was only after the popularization of spirit manifestations that the issue of direct writing began to be taken seriously. The first time it became known in Paris a few years ago seems to have been when Baron Guldenstube produced a very interesting work on the subject, employing a large number of facsimiles that had been written in this manner. The phenomenon had already been known about in America for quite some time. Guldenstube's social position, his independence, and the respect he enjoyed in high society undeniably discounted any suspected voluntary fraud because he had no ulterior motive to encourage him. At most, what could be accepted was that he had been the victim of illusion himself. However, a decisive fact was presented against such a notion. The same phenomenon was witnessed by other persons who had taken all the necessary precautions for avoiding any fraud or cause for error.
Thanks, Philip. So the only really significance on this reading here is that the phenomenon of direct writing sorry, cannot be new, right? Cannot be had started with spirituals. Would not if mediumship has existed throughout the times, way before spirituals, without the belief or the understanding of the phenomena, without the belief in spirits, mediumship always existed, will always exist as long as there are incarnate and discarnate spirits. There will be means of interaction, and that mean of interaction establishes, therefore, a mediumship. So it's also expected that the direct writing has happened before, and perhaps a lot more than you are aware of it, because if something appears written somewhere out of nowhere and no one can claim being the author, can we say that it's a direct writing that comes from the spiritual world? We could, but are we going to be able to prove? And those who disagree are going to be able to prove on the contrary. So perhaps there has been a lot more direct writings throughout times that we are aware of it. Spirits may not necessarily want to make themselves known. Especially the more evolved, the better teachers in the spiritual world for us. They come, they deliver the message. They're not interested in declaring themselves, getting credit for anything. So I personally believe that there are many things over there that cannot be explained by our science, by our physical science, and that perhaps have a spiritual cause. As everybody who knows me, I'm very careful of pointing everything to the spiritual side of things to avoid mythical and mystical things. I think spiritism as a science should look for evidences that led us to be very comfortable to say, yeah, this has a spiritual source. Besides that, I'm not calling everything that I see as a strange phenomena coming from the spiritual world. But there are some examples, and some examples actually with proof, like the one from this called Belshazzar, that is this prince, or the Babylonian prince. There was a huge playboy of his time, also his party and wasting all his resources and having a good time. A real playboy. So that warning letters, words just show up on the walls over there that some people could see, some people could not see, no one could understand. And so they brought to Daniel, supposed to be the wise man, and Daniel said that it was from his parents or grandparents, forget. But it says in the bottom here, actually, for the son, was his father, this kind of father who actually wrote those warning words, and that was declared by Daniel, there was wise one. So you see over here that even the very beginning of civilizations, there was already evidence of direct writing. And more recently, this Baron that was also seems to be an expert of getting direct writing being happening that was severely criticized. Of course, people think that he was just trying to be a show-off, someone with tremendous monetary power in good social position. They did not have to try to profit from anything. Therefore, it's unlikely to be charlatanism. Who bought some also direct writings. So that has been happening throughout times. The ones that can be documented and have some evidence that you can truly declare it's come from the spiritual world, but it's very likely there's many other direct writings out there that no one can claim. Perhaps the most famous, and I perhaps going to be hit hard for saying that, the Ten Commandments written on stones. You know, this is perhaps the greatest was the most important form of direct writing that we could mention. Question, comments? Okay, you can continue, please.
148. As with most of the non-spontaneous spirit manifestations, direct writing is received through meditation, prayer, and evocation. Many times it has been obtained in churches, on tombs, and at the foot of statues and images of the personages so evoked. Yet, it is obvious that the location serves only to influence meditation and engender greater mental concentration, since it has been shown to be equally obtainable without such accessories, and in the most ordinary places, such as upon simple domestic furniture, whenever the required moral conditions exist and if the necessary mediumistic faculty is available. At first, it was found that it was necessary to place a pencil and paper together. Thus, the phenomena could be more easily explained, since we know that spirits can move and dislocate objects and that they can sometimes pick them up and throw them about. Then they could easily pick up a pencil and write with it, since they can also write by using the medium's hand or planchette as an intermediary. Then they can surely write directly. Consequently, it was soon discovered that the pencil was unnecessary, that it was enough to supply a sheet of paper, folded or not, and that in a few minutes, letters would begin to appear. Here, the phenomena completely changed its character, and we were introduced to another order of ideas. The letters were written with some kind of substance, and since they were not the ones who furnished it, the spirit itself had to have produced and brought it. But from where? That was the question. If we refer back to chapter 8, numbers 127 and 128, we will find a complete explanation of this phenomenon. In this type of writing, a spirit does not use our substances or instruments. It itself produces what it needs by drawing matter from the universal primitive element, which under the influence of the spirit's will undergoes the necessary modifications to attain the desired effect. In this way, it can produce the writing of a red pencil, typographical printer's ink, or ordinary ink like black ink, or even typographical characters that are sufficiently firm to leave an indentation in the paper, as we have had the opportunity to witness. The daughter of one of our acquaintances, a girl of 12 or 13 years, received pages written in something resembling pastel colors.
Thanks. Thank you. So Hegazak brings three things that all three things has already been seen by us. Again, we're dealing here with direct writings. That is basically the spirits writing by themselves, not using the hands of a medium, or that would be in psychography. They do the own writing all by themselves. Location. A lot of those phenomena has happened in church, in where the congregation of people. And Kardec makes sure to make a point here that that's not the location itself that produces, that brings those spirits over there to produce the phenomena, but is the collective mind, concentration in prayers, in evocation, that allows that brings those spirits over there and allows them to perform the phenomena. Naturally, you would expect there would be someone there in the vicinity to be a medium of physical phenomena. And the second aspect that it brings is what is needed. In the beginning, they thought for the phenomena to happen, they would have to provide some writing material other than the paper, a pencil, a pen, and anything that could be used to write. So they used to put a piece of paper and a pencil on top of the table or inside of a drawer, different places to use different techniques. And there is an echo. And and then the writing would happen. Then they understood that not even a pencil was necessary, that the spirits would bring their own writing material. And then come to the third point of this topic is, where does it come from? And again, we already had covered this in chapter 8, Kardec says over here. In the laboratory of the invisible world, when we studied that chapter, the spirit has the ability of manipulating universal cosmic, the elementary matter that has qualities to be manipulated in the physical and in the spiritual world. Therefore, it is everywhere in the physical and in the spiritual world. And by manipulating the universe cosmic influence, they can produce what's necessary for them. If you take an example of nosso lar, it's said to be a metropolis with buildings and cars and everything. If you think our spirits being dressed, how well they get their clothes. They go to a shopping mall and go into Gap and buy whatever they need over there. That's not really the case. But they are able to manipulate what they need. And so they're able to manipulate also to produce and bring with them writing material. They can bring the pencil, they can bring the pen, whatever is what they're going to use to write. And in such a display of, they can really produce just about anything that they need, that even there is a case of this young lady who would receive direct writings, written something that it's like resembles the pastel colors, things for children, that associates with the children. That's a degree of the ability of manufacturing that they have in the spiritual world. And if our world is a bad copy of the spiritual world, you want to imagine that the ability to manufacture and produce things is much, much greater than what we have here. Okay, again, it's repetition. We have done this already. Was there any questions there? It's okay. Not everybody was probably when we did those lectures. People are coming in now. If you have any questions, please go ahead. If not, 149. I think we are.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Such was the result that led us to the phenomenon of the snuff box in chapter 7, number 116, a matter we discussed at great length because it seemed to be an opportunity to probe into one of the most important laws of Spiritism, a law whose understanding could clarify many mysteries surrounding the invisible world. It is thus that the light can be derived from an apparently ordinary incident. We only need to observe closely, something we and everyone else can do when we do not limit ourselves to watching effects without looking for their underlying causes. If our faith becomes stronger day by day, it is because we understand. Make sure you understand if you want to win serious adherence. The understanding of matters has a further result in that it establishes a dividing line between truth and superstition. If we take into consideration the advantages that direct writing can offer, we will admit that until now, its main usefulness has consisted in the material proof of an important fact, the intervention of a hidden power that can use this process as a new means of manifesting itself. However, communications obtained in this way are rarely very lengthy. They are generally spontaneous and are limited to words, sentences, and quite often unintelligible symbols. They may occur in all languages, Greek, Latin, Syriac, in hieroglyphics, etc., but they cannot yet lend themselves to the continuous and rapid conversations obtained through psychography, writing using the medium's hand.
Thank you. So he continues with the topic of the ability of manufacturing things in the spiritual world, and it brings again the example of the snuff box. There's on chapter 7 of this incarnate person who in mediumistic trance leave his physical body sleeping in his home and goes to an old lady's house and takes the care of bringing with him even the snuff box that he would always have in his hand to really impress that lady that was indeed him, was even able to bring that snuff box. And what Kardec brings over here is an invitation for all of us to be scientists in our own mind, our own ability, to use this ability to be observant and picking up the little things that makes the whole difference. Was by picking up on the fact that spirit or that spirit had with him a snuff box that Kardec pick up on that thing and develop this whole series of questionnaires. And we saw that there he has a lengthy questionnaire to St. Louis to reach a very important conclusion that we already said over here: the ability of spirits of manufacture, of produce things over there, and of course the source, the element that they use to produce things would be the universe fluid. So he invites us to have this state of mind that really is the the most important thing for us to progress, for us to develop ourselves in all sciences. We only need to observe closely something we and everyone else can do when you do not limit ourselves to watching effects without looking for the underlying cause. So things happen, there has to be a cause. And if things happen, it does generate consequences. So an intelligent person, a person who is willing to exercise their brain and this ability, will be looking for causes, will be thinking of what's going to happen next, what will be the consequence of that, instead of limiting oneself just to the phenomenon itself. The phenomenon will go, it will pass, but if you collect those informations from it, we can really extrapolate and expand vastly our understanding of everything else. And this knife bug is a very good example. It was not enough to be amazed that somebody alive was able to leave the physical body behind and go to somebody's house and present himself in another house. And Kardec picked up and said, wow, there was a knife bug in his hand. How is that possible? Small, could be a small detail, was the beginning of a great new concept in understanding the spiritual world. And then he finalizes the topic saying that the most important thing that we get from direct writers really is a proof. What time when proof was perhaps important, no longer is, that they are able to do things on their own, they are able to produce things on their own, they are able to interact with us in a very meaningful way. We talk about these periods, but usually it's kind of monosyllable things here, sometimes not even well understood, many different languages, but not much of a content in terms of the messages that come from those direct writers, usually, most of the time. That psychography is much more productive. You say, 400, 600 page books out of psychography, which has, as much as I know, has not happened with pneumatography or direct writing. So it has its value of proof, has its values in the case, let's say, a congregation in a church, let's say, or Santa Barbara, and with putting all the effort, all the medication, all the vocation, and Santa Barbara decides to leave something written, it reinforces their faith, it gives them that certainty that the prayers are being heard, that Santa Barbara can actually hear them. So it has its value in terms of proof. But as a material of studies to really educate us, it doesn't really do the job as well as psychography does. Okay, comment, questions? So now I'm gonna go to another topic, pneumatophony.
Shall I?
Please.
Since spirits can produce noises and raps, they can naturally make all kinds of cries and vocal sounds, including imitating the human voice, either right at our side or in the air. We call this phenomenon pneumatophony. According to what we know about the nature of spirits, we can imagine that some of those who belong to a lower order are deluded with the belief that they can speak as they did when they were alive. See La Revue Spirit February 1858, Histoire du Revenant de Mademoiselle Clarion. We must therefore avoid taking for occult voices all sounds with an unknown cause behind them, or a simple ringing in the ears, and especially accepting the popular belief that ringing ears are warning us that someone is talking about us somewhere. These ringings have a purely psychological cause and are meaningless, whereas the sounds of pneumatophony express thoughts, and we can thus recognize that there is an intelligent rather than an accidental cause behind them. As a guiding principle, we can establish the fact that only obviously intelligent effects can attest to the manifestations of spirits. As for other effects, the odds are more than 100 to 1 in favor of them being produced by fortuitous causes.
Okay, so pneumatophony. So pneumo air, phony sound. Sounds coming in the air from no obvious instrument, from no obvious person. We know already they can produce the raps, they can produce the sounds inside of wood. Therefore, if they are able to produce sounds, like they could not be able to produce sounds that mimics human voice. Kardec makes the point of saying human voice here to differentiate that as spirits, sorry, we communicate primarily via thought. As incarnated spirits, what I call humans, we need to produce sounds that use air as a medium to travel from point A to point B, right? If spirits are able to produce sounds, those sounds also have to have a very material quality, meaning that it also would have to travel through air from point A to point B to be able to be heard by us, right? And therefore, would have to have the qualities of the human voice. And that also has been documented throughout history, some cases that is of voices being heard. But Kardec makes a very important point, as always, to make sure that you're not getting to the mystical or the mythical, that you're not degrade the phenomena with meaningless, absurd things. Things like that he uses over here with the ringing in the ears, is somebody trying to speak, and those things. So have the physiological causes for ringing the ears. Most of the time what you hear is one blood inside of vessels and some kind of turbulences that you hear. That mostly causes those ringing, those kind of noises in the ear. So most of those things have a reason to be. There is a physical reason to be, and you have to make sure that we separate, differentiate all those taboos, all those mystical and mythical things from what is really a pneumatophony. I've said that they do happen, okay? Again, usually it will be very short, very quick. It's not going to be a whole communication, so to say. One would require, perhaps understand that would require an immense amount of energy that can be much better used in a true psychophony, when spirits can use the vocal apparatus of a medium and express its thoughts through that medium. Okay. Questions, comments? Keep going. Thanks.
(151). When we are half asleep, we frequently hear words, names, and sometimes entire sentences distinctly pronounced so loudly that we awaken startled. Although some of these incidents may really be manifestations, there is nothing so remarkable about them that we cannot attribute them to a cause similar to what we developed in the theory of hallucination, chapter 6, number 111. Hence, what is usually heard in this state is of no consequence. The same does not apply, however, when we are truly awake, because then, if we are actually hearing a spirit, we can usually exchange thoughts with it and strike up a normal conversation. Spirit sounds, or pneumatophonics, manifest in two very distinct ways. Sometimes as an inner voice that resonates within us, and although the words may be clear and distinct, they are not physically produced. At other times, as words that are outside of us and which are so distinctly articulated that they seem to be coming from someone standing right beside us. Whichever way it is produced, the phenomenon of pneumatophony is nearly always spontaneous, and it can rarely be evoked.
Okay, so a very short passage, not much significance as well. Kardec again wants to suggest us to truly think and make differentiate of things that could really be of a spiritual cause, meaning an external, another spirit, and ourselves spirit. And one of the possibilities, this where he goes the hallucinations, we're gonna go back to the chapter of hallucinations again. And when in that stage of not awake but not sleeping yet, or not sleeping yet but not not well awake as well, in that stage between things that he says over here, when people hear voices, I don't know if I do, I don't know, I don't think I do hear those voices, but perhaps most people do, because if you put over here, seems to be quite common, that it's likely a product of a hallucination. It's likely we doing a brain exercise of reviewing things, and some of the things may come in as in our imagination sounds. So that would not, Kardec would not put that in the realm of pneumatophony. But when are fully awake, fully alert, and we are hearing those voices, clearly hear those voices, and there is no one apparently nearby speaking with us. Today it's even more difficult. It's so much technology, so much cameras and instruments that produces sounds all over the place. But at the time of Kardec, no, they didn't have echo, they didn't have Alexa and all those things. They just had to talk to us at any point. But even so, in nowadays, if you are fully awake, fully alert, and we can rule out all those new little toys that we have in our advanced technologies, and we are really distinctly hearing voices. Why could not be from the spiritual world? If again they make sounds, why could they not produce voices? And Kardec says over here, there's two ways that those voices can be heard. One, as if it's come from inside of us, but it's not us. As if there is no a voice that comes from deep inside of us that can clearly hear it, but we know that it's not us, and we know that it's not someone else. That is one. And another one that is external, that is come from somewhere, as if someone was talking to us from somewhere, but there is no one around. And the differentiation of being a true pneumatophony than a hallucination basically is the intelligent aspect of it. That you may be able to question and receive an answer, or may receive an intelligence advice or suggestion of something that you'll be thinking about. All right. And if you are, I'm the only one thinking about it, and now somebody tells me something about the same topic, what I'm questioning, what I'm going through, why could it not be from the spirits? There's a good likelihood that that is indeed coming from the spirit. One of the things that Kardec says it's important, it is usually not evoked. Usually not happen when you place yourself in a state of meditation and you call for the name of whoever you're going to call, and that person will show up and we hear that voice. Usually it's almost always Kardec says over here that it is spontaneous. I have never witnessed, I've never seen, don't know how commonplace this still happens. I don't know. Okay. What is that?
There's a question now by Sue.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, this is Sue. Elmo, I'm just curious why it is that psychography and psychophony, when the spirit uses the medium's hand to write and uses the medium's voice to speak, why are they able to communicate at such greater lengths when there's a medium? Why can't they communicate at such lengths with the ways in this chapter?
I think the most important thing would be the degree of energy that is required for the spirit to do those phenomena on his or her own. We know that all those phenomena takes a tremendous amount of energy from not only from the spiritual world, but for the mediums who are able to provide the mediumship for the phenomena to take place. And it requires tremendous amount of perfectibility of the ambient. The ambient has to be in a very high elevated state of thoughts. Every single member in that place should be really with sublime thoughts, and anything that deviates from the objective may not allow the phenomenon to take place. So it is difficult even to get the place to that level. When you read mechanisms of mediumship, and that the chapter talk about that, they were preparing a phenomenon that could not take place because the people, the incarnate over there, were not elevating their minds enough for the phenomenon to take place. A cacophony does not take that much effort. I mean, it may take a concentration from the medium and from everyone over there, but it's since the medium is already alive, already has all that physical palpable energy, it's much easier to be produced at length, no 600 pages on a book.
That all made sense. Elmo, did you just say that if there's not a medium, if it's not coming through a medium, then everybody has to be vibrating at a higher frequency, have more clarity and purity for the non-medium communication to come through?
Regardless of being a medium or not, it will require the utmost concentration and elevate thoughts from everyone present. But there will be a medium. There will be a medium over there. Maybe not even know that medium may not even know that it's a medium.
Okay, so that the elevated thinking applies to either way.
Regardless, yes.
Oh, that's all fascinating. Thank you.
Sure. And that's one of the things that this more physical phenomena does not happen much. There was a point in history in the development of the doctrine that there was that need of things to be more palpable, more to impress more of our physical senses. Once they pass that phase, then we go to the next phase. Then with the cacophonies and the psychographies become much more significant because it's easier to be produced and it can be stored and can be known in books and everything else. So the physical phenomena and the manifestations, because this may not be qualified as a physical phenomenon, but the manifestations doesn't carry much value today anymore. If people are still looking for proofs, they're way behind. And the spirit, they're gonna have to catch up because spirits cannot stay back there too long. We have 10 more minutes or so.
Yeah, we have 7 minutes. Maybe we should wrap up what we study in this chapter, because now we're going to the intelligent manifestations, right? The psychography, right?
Yeah.
And these were all physical phenomena, right? We talked last week on this.
It's physical phenomena / manifestations, right?
Yeah. I was looking at last week, we talked about somatology, typology, and then direct writing, and then pneumatophony, right?
Yes.
Which is a lot of things that, as you said, we barely see today, right? Because we have moved forward, right? It's interesting that Francisco Xavier, at a certain point in his life, was told by Emmanuel, no more of the physical manifestations. Let's focus on the books. That's what stays, right? Because the materialization is very beautiful for those that are present, but that has no lasting significance for those that are not present, right? So I think it's important to always reinforce this understanding of the importance of the intelligent phenomena, mediumistic phenomena, in terms of compared to the physical phenomena.
I think it's kind of the natural progress, evolution of a science, right? That it has to start with the most simple as everything else, and progress and make itself more relevant to us. If the cacophonies of the pneumatographies and pneumatophonies are interesting, and they are, what really carries value, it's really the psychographers and the psychophonists, because with the writing you can always save it, you can always use that as an instrument of teaching, and the psychophonist primarily can be of assistance to needy spirits. So there's much greater value in that, and we're not going to say the other things are not important, but time goes, we move on from one thing to the next, and in the law of progress, the next should be of greater value than the one in the past.
Elmo, I have a question.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay, it says here that pneumatography, God can pronounce that, pneumatophony. Pneumatography. Okay, pneumatophony, kind of hard to pronounce that. Sometimes could be an inner voice that resonates within us. That's what it says. Now, yeah. How do I differentiate that with, let's say, with my own inspiration? Can I make the discrimination, differentiation between the inner voice that resonate with me and my own inspiration?
Yeah, this inner voice is you hear as if someone is talking to you. If someone is telling you something, really. It's not like a thought. It's not like an inspiration, a thought that comes to your mind. It's someone telling you something what you hear in your gut.
Yeah, okay, got it. It's like a direct kind of, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something like direct coming from within, but it's direct.
That's
it's not
right.
Inspiration, which is much more of a flow kind of, yeah.
Yeah, the inspirations, you can actually question, I mean, is it me? Am I, or it come from a third party? You know, with this voice, you know it's not you. You know it's someone telling you something. It's come from an outside source. That you, yes.
Thank you. That's well explained. Well, as always.
And also, if I could add, it seems that sometimes that voice is for real, and it will come. You know, you're having just a regular day, and interspersed suddenly, out of context, comes like an inspiration or a voice, like, "Oh, no, don't go that direction. No." And personally, that to me is also coupled with a feeling, a physical feeling. So I've had those, and usually I can sense like, oh, pay attention, because it's very palpable. It's, for me, palpable. So I don't know, it's short-lived. It's nothing like a sentence at all. It's just like, wake up, watch your left, watch the right, don't go that way. Or, wait until 3 o'clock, don't go right now. Something very simple, but yet it's very palpable. That's kind of what I can offer, generally speaking.
Well, thank you, Carol. I'm glad someone who had experienced that can.
I had a very similar one to Carol too, actually. It was just like all of a sudden, just a voice that told me something related to something that happened immediately after. There were warning voices, but it happened at least twice that I remember very vividly. And sort of the same voice, the same voice, different times, probably 12 or 15 years apart, but it was the same voice.
Yeah, and you can definitely distinguish from being you or from being an inspiration or a thought, or you can be absolutely certain that is a third party.
Oh yeah, the first time was the first time I was sleeping, and I was literally awakened by someone saying very loudly, he's gonna be all right. And a minute later, the telephone rang, and my brother was in the hospital in a car accident, and he almost died. Wow. And then the second time, I was coming back from a rave party where I had done ecstasy for the very first time, and knowing that I was, I don't know, 21, knowing that I shouldn't do it because I didn't want to do it, but I ended up doing it. That night on the way home, going back with home with the friends, were exhausted. Nobody was saying anything. And then a voice also said, what is the word? To crunch, to lower your head. What is the word in English? Is
Bow your head.
Bow your head. And in the same time, my only time ever that I was robbed at a gunpoint happened immediately. They took my money, my passport. It was like 1 second, but hadn't I not done that, I don't know what would have happened. Wow. And so those were the two very, very vivid moments.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. It's always important when somebody can bring those examples with their own experience that clarify things for everyone. All right, that's it. Gary, would like to make a final prayer for us, please?
Sure. Infinite Creator, Great Spirit, those who are with us this evening to share in our study of the Medium's book, our mentors, our guides, our helpers, our healers, our guardian angels, we give thanks for your presence, and we give thanks for the inspiration that we have received this evening to share in our studies. May we continue to grow as a group. May we continue to grow individually as well. And may we share what we have learned through the wisdom, through our discernment, and through our guides who are giving us the directionals. May we pay attention more deeply, and may we listen wholeheartedly to the inspiration that comes to us on a day-to-day basis. We are truly grateful for what we have received, and we are thankful this evening for our studies. And may we continue to return to our studies next week as well. And as we close this meeting this evening, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we go forth to family, friends, and loved ones. And may we continue with our prayers, with our studies, and our mindfulness throughout the week. We are never alone, and we are always guided to do our part. We give thanks to the love and light and peace of Christ within us, and may we retain this light within and share it in a glowing way as beacons of light. We close now and give thanks for the opportunity to be together, and may we go forth as beacons of light. So be it.